Video ads are not only one of the most important ad formats that you can be using inside of Google Ads, they're also one of the most underutilized. And this is becoming especially true as Google search is fundamentally changing as people are switching more to chat-based or conversational-based searches as opposed to keyword-based searches. This is going to have a very real effect of skyrocketing CPCs. And a big way that brands and businesses can fight back is by incorporating video as a go-to play inside of their Google Ads campaigns. And this shift is already happening fast, with YouTube seeing an uptick of close to 20% in extra advertising spending in the last quarter of 2024. So to give you the best strategies of what is working right now inside of YouTube and video ads for Google Ads, I invited a video specialist, being Cory from Variable Media. Cory's been working with YouTube ads for over 8 years and has racked up over $1 billion in ad spend. So what I can guarantee is that the insights which he's about to share are not only very practical, but they are also tried and tested because they've worked for some of the largest brands. So thank you for joining me, because right now we're going to get into the interview with Cory from Variable Media. All right, welcome back. And today I've got Cory with me, and we are going to be talking all about video ads. So the first thing I want to ask about, Cory, what are the best formats that you find work for video ads inside of Google?
I think the best formats that work would be to break the format down into three places. The first would be in-stream. That would be your landscape. The second thing would be shorts, which would be vertical, but also like one of the newest placements to launch probably in the last year and a half, which would be the in-feed placement, where a user is scrolling through their homepage and they're able to find a video that engages them, click through into a landscape or a shorts format. And so when it comes to landscape, that's where I would want something a little bit more long form versus a short that is a bit more UGC, people-centric, really trying to capture somebody with a shorter attention span.
So when you say, when you talk about shorts, I mean, do you have any recommended lengths or, I mean, obviously it can be different for different brands, but are there sort of best practices that you would use, especially for starting out?
Yeah, for shorts, I think one of the biggest best practices I can recommend is to start quickly. Very similar to like TikTok, Reels, or Stories. It's an area where you really want to start quickly, add value up front, and really ask for that call to action all within about 15 to 30 seconds.
Okay. And then for in-stream, is there any sort of recommendation for how long that video should last?
For in-stream, when it comes to an ad perspective, I believe you have a longer time with that user. And so I would recommend, potentially having the logo, right? So you're always getting that brand impression, because what I like to run is a cost per view campaign where I'm going after a viewer who's most likely willing to stay with my video for the longest period of time. And so having that impression with that logo there allows me to continue to garner as many users as possible that see my logo, even if I don't pay for them after 30 seconds, on a cost per view. And so when it comes to in-stream, I like a little bit of a longer video, about a minute 30, but taking advantage of those first 30 seconds to be able to engage the user, brand the user, potentially illustrate the problem, and then solve the problem all before 30 seconds. And I think with that longer lead time, it also allows you to build in better variation, right?
Yeah.
And so with variation, I mean, like you could have indoor versus outdoor, suspenseful versus comedy, female versus male versions, and begin to compare and contrast the results from that on who ends up staying past 30 seconds. Or if you have something like this inside of a demand gen campaign, see who becomes a lead or a conversion.
Yeah. Okay. Great. We're going to talk about a lot of that as we go through further, but I just did also want to touch on, you mentioned the new format. Can you just explain it through to people who may not be aware of that format, that ads can actually appear now in the home screen section of YouTube?
Sure. It's the in-feed format, and the in-feed format comes when people search, as well as when people go to the homepage and are just scrolling. And the thing that is unique about this new ad format is that somebody is not waiting for content like they are in shorts or within in-stream. And so as somebody's scrolling through their feed, they are actually looking for content. And this is much different. This is the first time YouTube has ever provided a placement like this. And I can almost call a user very similar to like the news feed inside of Facebook or Instagram, where they are scrolling, they are consistent motion with their thumb. And so having something that is more inspirational in terms of content, I think will work the best inside of an in-feed placement. But it is very new, and it doesn't run previous to other content similar to like a pre-roll. It actually works as somebody is looking for something to find.
Okay. So with those ones, I mean, that's really kind of probably merging the gap between like an organic YouTube video and an actual ad, in that, the ad would be addy, but it's you can sort of you probably want that to be a bit more educational, inspirational, as you're saying, in the format.
Absolutely. And the thing that I like to do is really take in-feed into a long form environment, into a landscape video. You can bring them into a short, but I would really recommend them bringing them into like a landscape video. And what we usually see when we run in-feed campaigns is more subscribers and, more earned views, which is somebody seeing your ad and then going to your channel and watching another video.
Okay, great. We're going to jump into a lot more of those formats through some extra questions. But the one thing I did probably really want to start off with, especially I know in the e-commerce space, there are a lot of e-commerce brands. I mean, the data's out there. I think YouTube alone last quarter saw, I think it was close to a 20% up in ad revenue. I think it was like 18.9, something like that. Are there any differences between the formats? And when I mean, not necessarily formats, into the type of video ads that work on Meta versus what work on Google or on YouTube? So, I mean, can brands just bring across those ads, or should they be recording different sections of ads? Hello there, and I hope you're enjoying my latest interview. I just wanted to quickly let you know that all of these interviews are sponsored by my paid Google Ads community, which is called the Google Ads Mastery Community. I set this community up for one clear purpose, and that is so that I could provide people with direct Google Ads support. And we do this in three main ways. Firstly, we run weekly live calls, and these are live calls that are run in all different time zones so that we can get the support to you. And it's where you can actually ask myself and also highly skilled members of my Defined Digital Academy team direct questions about your Google Ads campaigns. We then also run monthly masterclasses, and these are in-depth teachings for what you need for success with Google Ads. And they don't only cover things inside of the Google Ads dashboard, we also cover specific training around things like offline conversions and how to increase the performance of your landing pages. All the important things you need for true success with Google Ads. And above all else, we've got our Google Ads community feed. And this is where you can join well over 300 other like-minded professionals like you. And we've got Google Ads specialists, agency owners, and also direct business owners who are there supporting and helping each other with how to see the best success with Google Ads throughout the year. And the best thing about this community is that it's all at a really low price, because you can get full access for less than the price of a cup of coffee every day. And that's why I set up this community, is so that you can get tailored Google Ads support for a very low price. Right now, we're going to get right back into the interview, but if you'd like to find out more information about how you could join, and plus also get a lifetime discount to join my Google Ads Mastery community, just follow the link in the description below.
I think if you're building vertical and you're running on like Meta or you're running on TikTok, I think that can easily be translated over to a short within YouTube. But I think what I want advertisers to understand is the difference in engagement. Engagement on Meta or Instagram or Facebook, where you have likes, shares, comments, and things like that. These things happen more frequently than something on YouTube. And so it's just expected to see it over there versus in something like a short. I think when we're creating on Meta, usually we have multiple variations, of creative. I think you can take that same type of approach on YouTube as well. What I want advertisers to understand is that YouTube, you're not going to get the level of engagement you are on something like a Meta or something like a TikTok. You might see longer watch times, and you might see a greater halo effect that you can't necessarily calculate in platform, but you might see within organic search or paid search.
Yeah, I know that's a big thing that I'm talking to with brands and clients that we're working with now is especially inside of whether you've got it in a video campaign line or a demand gen campaign line, is that don't look at that data or conversion data in a silo by itself, because quite often it might just be reporting, we have some brands where it's really, really profitable, other brands where it's basically just breaking even. But when you look at 90 days after they started that campaign versus the 90 days before, they can see a huge reduction in CPCs, a reduction in cost per conversion, and all of the other metrics. So I like what you say there, to really make sure you're looking at as a total account and that halo effect as opposed to just an individual campaign.
I think another thing I would say too is that when I look at my Facebook and my Instagram campaigns, I usually see like lower watch time. Versus when I go to YouTube campaigns, I usually see a longer watch time. And what I try to educate advertisers with is that, would you like somebody coming to your site and spending 30 seconds or watching 2 minutes of your video ad on YouTube? Like which one is truly more impactful? Because the one you can calculate, the other one, it's a little bit harder. But I think Google is making that easier by providing incremental, like analysis reports, as well as, being able to retarget users that make it past 50%, of your video. So I think they're growing. I think they're getting better. But I think if you're looking for longer watch times with a more complicated product, or you can really believe that longer watch time equals a better, potentially faster converting user, it's definitely the place to play.
One thing I found interesting is some data, I think it was from Ipsos data I looked at, came out last year, just reporting on different trends between YouTube, Instagram, and TikTok, is that when we looked especially like at YouTube and Instagram, the actual total time on the platform was very, very similar. The difference is that YouTube, it was like all in one session, or like 95% in one session. Whereas Instagram is more like shorter sessions. And that speaks to what you're saying, is when people are on YouTube, I think the average was about 40 minutes an individual session. So people are spending a lot longer on YouTube as opposed to coming and going, or what they would do on Instagram and TikTok.
I have a slide on this exact thing where I show Instagram or Facebook and I ask the audience like, hey, like, what are you coming to the platform for? Like, what do you come to Instagram or Facebook for? And I think it's all different. It's every different. I come to see a grandma's post. I come to, see my favorite influencer. I come to watch video. But when you go to YouTube, everybody goes for video. It's a video only platform. And so I believe that they come to the platform to either be entertained, inspired, or educated. And that's why I think that we see those longer sessions.
Yeah, right. All right. So now I want to get into, we've spoken about the different formats, and obviously there's three main formats, which is the shorts, the verticals, in-stream, and then also the in-feed. Can you sort of break down from your experience of, are there different styles of ads or like recording formats or scripting of ads that work for different formats? So let's firstly talk about shorts. What is the best type? Is it user-generated? Is it testimonial? Or is it more like what you'd call your traditional Addy ads work best in that format?
I think shorts is primarily UGC. I think it is where people really want to know what type of brand, you are. And I don't know if that's because vertical leans towards that, or it's what we've been taught from the days of, stories into reels, into TikTok. Like, have we just been geared to understand UGC from that format? Now we are seeing longer formats and vertical, on something like TikTok. And I believe that comes to YouTube as well. I think we're getting more comfortable with longer form, but I think right now today, it is truly UGC is where I'm seeing the biggest impact, longest watch times, as well as, the virality, of the video. I think people are looking for something a little bit more funny, more entertaining, wanting to know who you are as a brand within shorts.
I agree with that. And I've also got a theory as to why that's happening. And I always come back to, if you just think about the way that the user is interacting in shorts, the majority of the time they're going to be on their phone and they're scrolling through and then they see your ad. And if it's an Addy type ad, so if it looks like an ad straight away, they're just going to scroll straight past it because they can. Whereas if it looks like, user-generated content, it's a testimonial, or it's a bit more of just looks like natural organic content, they kind of engage. So if you can engage them, they don't even realize it's an ad until they're halfway or however long that video runs through. So that's definitely something we've noticed. Like my best performing shorts ad is actually just a testimonial. It's essentially a testimonial, and then we've flipped a little 10-second offer on the back of that testimonial.
Yeah, and I believe customer reviews is a big one. Like using an actual like influencer or like one of your best customers has become something that we've tested a lot.
We've got a brand that we're working with, and they sell anti-snore mouth guards. And their best video that's working in shorts is actually a voiceover of a guy just talking about the mouth guard and the benefits of the mouth guard. And it's the lowest production, but it's the highest value because it just looks like that natural organic content that fits within the vertical placement of ads.
Exactly.
All right. So we've spoken about shorts. Now let's move into in-stream. So these are the videos just for people, just so we can confirm here that people are watching a YouTube video and then again going to get interrupted. What is working for those style of videos?
I believe the tried and true like educational format, it still lives, primarily in this in-stream placement. But I'm now working with advertisers like I have in the past. Purple Mattress being one of the biggest one. You can check their YouTube channel out. The funny stuff, the comedy, somewhere where you can get like a minute 30, 2 minutes of something that is going to like really shock people. I think that in-stream reminds me the most of television in terms of like a legacy format where you can really have a user there for a good amount of time to really like serve your ad. And so I like when people get in a room and toss ideas around and build multiple variations, and having that variation be in the beginning of the video. So definitely having like, 10-second intros that are different to see what works and what doesn't work. And with the capabilities and analysis and all the data that we have to see within these videos, you're able to really find the right one that is going to scale.
Yeah.
But I think education first, funny. If you have a very complicated product, being able to go into detail after luring the person in with interest, but I think with a longer format, you got a little bit more time to be able to execute on your brand.
Yeah, I mean, it's probably going back to, I mean, that really probably hasn't changed on YouTube. I think one of the first brands that really got sort of, runaway success was remember the unicorn potty? That was and that was actually an ad that went viral. And so it probably hasn't swayed from that, and that was sort of 15 years ago.
I actually worked on that. We bought media.
Did you?
For that. Yeah.
Oh, amazing.
I forget what it was. Was it the
The squatty potty, wasn't it?
Was it squatty potty? I think so.
Yeah.
Or was Poopery was another one that we worked on too that had this amazing YouTube virality and like growth to it. I don't believe that like works perfect as it did in the past. And it came at a time where there was only cost per view. There was no, conversion type of campaigns on YouTube. And so you really got that conversion audience within that cost per view campaign at a very low cost. And so it was just the right time, right place for something like that for sure.
And then let's finally talk about the in-feed, which is obviously the one that can be appearing in the feed or on the homepage. You were saying from there, that one's very much probably closer to a bit more of like a organic content, inspirational, educational. Is there anything extra you want to add there?
Yeah, this is where I want brands to think about inspiring. I think the most special thing about this placement is the cost. Like how cost efficient this placement is. I'm seeing CPMs below $1, below $2 in most cases. And that is just, an amazing rate, I think, for advertisers to get in a cost per view or a CPM campaign. We've been able to scale brands, with this in-feed placement. And so my best advice is to not necessarily think of it as a video, but think of it more as like, how can I entice people with this image, right?
Yeah.
And a good text, because that's what you're battling against. You're battling against the video before, the video after. And so you really want something that's stopping them to take a look, and then having one of your best videos that goes into education, have one of the best videos that goes into like really like that brand story. I think what we're finding is that founder story, customer testimonials in a long format within this in-feed placement are very impactful. But we're also seeing a lot of, just different types of creative work. And we all know that all brands are different. But I would really recommend this in-feed placement along with shorts, along with in-stream, just because you have the ability to find what works specifically for your brand.
Yeah. And I just want to expand out a little bit what you're sort of saying there, especially for e-commerce brands that have a smaller budget, that are just starting out. That founder brand story is something that is invaluable. And if you can really get that out on a platform, not only the social platforms, but a platform like YouTube, you get a lot more buy-in and brand loyalty, which really then takes away things like, price comparatives. If someone else jumps into the market slightly priced, if they're connected into you as the brand founder and the brand story, it goes a long way in keeping that long-term loyalty.
Absolutely. Completely agree.
Before we change gears a little bit and start talking about the Google Ads side of it and tied to the Google Ads dashboard, I just did want to ask, are there any frameworks that you use for ad format? So when you're working with a client or when you work with a brand, are there any rules you have around, should they start with a hook, then into pain and desire? Like, is there any sort of, tried and true formulas that you would generally use?
I would say if we're talking about in-stream, the biggest thing, I think if we looked at the overall picture, when we think about video, variation. And different variation. I want 2 different versions, Black female, white male, right? Indoor versus outdoor, right? Give me the big difference in variation so I can begin to shift my dollars into like what works and begin to iterate off of that variation, regardless if we're talking about in-stream, shorts, or in-feed. But specific to in-stream, this is where I want that variation in like the first 10 seconds. Because I know I have them. I'm guaranteed to have them. I'm not changing the CTA at the end of the video because a fraction of people end. It's very much in the beginning of the video that I want to optimize the different hooks, the different potential actors or where they are in the scene. That's the big thing for me in terms of in-stream. And then also like value propositions within 10 to 30 seconds for that in-stream is also what I'm trying to optimize. When it comes to shorts, I'm leaning more into the variation of the creator. That's the big thing for me is that like, if I'm gonna go customer testimonial, it's going to be 3 different ones. And then I'm also varying captions, right? Do I just throw out captions at certain keywords and pop them in there? Or do I have full caption, taking them through the entire storyline? Like those type of things I think matter. Also, hat, no hat. If I've only got one person, right? Different types of outfits if I've still only
Yeah.
got one person, but I'm really leaning into person specific. And then,
Yeah.
once we get down the line with like something like InStream, I might do logo versus no logo and play with like a few other things like the music,
Yeah.
and stuff like that. But I think when it comes to in-feed, text and overlay image is really what I'm trying to like optimize and change to see what entices users to click through at the best rate. Because in those other two formats of stories and InStream, it's all about like the view length, where I believe that, and again, I can't prove this yet, but in in-feed, it's all about like clicking through, like
Yeah.
who clicks through to that video. And so I definitely look at, variation as like an overarching theme, but inside of InStream versus Shorts, a little bit of the different variation of types of variation.
And typically, how many different variations are you launching at the same time inside of a campaign? So, you launching 3, 4, 5, 6. Is there any rules there that you use?
I'd say a minimum of 2, because it's got to be wild variation. But as that budget grows and as your investment and how much you believe in YouTube grows, you can get to 3, 4. I probably wouldn't go past 5. So I'd say between, 2 and 3 is like the sweet spot, right? Or 3 or 4, if you've got the budget, but not going past 5 and then taking those top 4 and then iterating very quickly and then seeing how far you can push that view rate. And I'm usually looking for a view rate between 50 to 70%. 60% is my sweet spot. I think if I'm closer to 30, got to create some new stuff.
And then is there any sort of frameworks, like you like to run those tests? I mean, obviously it would be dependent on budget, but you're looking at run those tests for at least 30 days, or is there a number of impressions or views that you're looking at before you make a call on the data?
I'm closer to about like 2 weeks, of running stuff. It's really going to depend on the audience that I'm targeting. Some people have smaller audiences that cost a little bit more, so they got to wait a little bit versus going a little bit broader. But I don't have necessarily like an impression amount or video view amount. But I think once you get to about 50,000, views, like people who make it past 30 seconds, I think that's a fair amount.
So it would be fair to say, obviously for people who are just looking at maybe potentially starting in YouTube and video ads, or looking at some formats, that if you were to come up with 2 or 3 different variations, which is then also broken out in between, a short format and a long format, they could probably start with that and then build out from there as they see the initial data.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think another thing that they can do, especially if they're a brand that's just starting out, I don't really trust yet YouTube, I want to just see something, I just want to see the impact of it. Then run in-feed in either a CPM or a cost per view campaign at a very low cost, and then pick your top 3 videos that you have on your YouTube channel to be able to run that. Because when a user sees one video, they might go to your channel and watch those other 2.
Yeah.
So that's the big recommendation. And the way Google Ads works, you can run $5 a day and it's totally fine.
All right. Now I want to move, we've spoken a lot about different formats and just the technical side of the ads and the formats. Now I want to talk about inside of Google Ads. So obviously Google Ads has made a switch over to demand gen. Video action campaigns have now been removed. They're going to be sunsetted in the next couple of months at the time of recording. Are you mainly setting up video campaigns, or are you going and using them inside of demand gen?
I'm beginning to use more demand gen. I wasn't at first, but now I'm seeing in all my accounts, I have the ability to segment by in-stream, shorts, as well as in-feed. And that segmentation wasn't necessarily possible before.
No.
And so this is a brand new world that I'm so excited for, because we finally have a conversion campaign where an advertiser can come to me and say, I only have vertical video. Great. I can run shorts only conversion campaigns.
Yeah.
Or, hey, I only have long form, but I don't really do like shorts and stuff. Like, we're a SaaS business. We don't really do the UGC thing. Great. We can run it this way. So it's giving me like such a great opportunity to reach a relevant user based on some of the audience signals that we've built using something like demand gen. It's very early in terms of like results, that I have. And I would say about 70% of like what I spend on YouTube across our brands is really like top funnel, cost per view, CPM campaigns, looking to build the channel, looking to really reach at a high level at a very low cost to surround where I see the most of the budget, being shifted towards, which is on Meta.
Yeah. And the thing I also like about demand gen as well is if you give that scenario there before, so let's just say you're dealing with a SaaS brand who's only got a longer form ad, so we're not wanting to attack the vertical or the shorts. You can not only test those ads by the different creators, but you can also build out very specific audiences. So you might have one audience which is a lookalike based off your customers.
Yeah.
You might have another audience which is more targeting specific YouTube channels or specific YouTube videos that you know your target customers watch. And that's another great, so you're basically running two testings, trying to find the creators, but also trying to find the audiences that are working best.
Yeah. And I think another thing that I want to mention too is your ability to include shopping or not include shopping via your feed. And that has been something that we've been testing, and I haven't done enough analysis yet to know how many additional placements you get when you add that shopping. I think being able to see these ads as well, they look so good in this like shorts format. So to be able to show, a short while being able to scroll through the products on the bottom, I think is just a great ad unit. And so very excited about demand gen. And I think, if we did this podcast a year from now, I'd have a lot more, intel.
Yeah, I did the same thing with Performance Max as well. Is that I'm definitely, I don't really touch it for the first 6 months after release, and part of the reason for that is just I've seen in product releases that they do their internal beta testing, and then the first release is generally a public beta testing. I've been really surprised with the results. One, that we're getting with Demand Gen, and two, the level of data that we get inside of Demand Gen. The fact that you can even drill down to audiences. You can drill. Yes, you're getting a lot of data that I didn't think that they would include. So yeah, I'm really happy with Demand Gen. The other thing I have noticed, and this is anecdotally that I'm talking with some other people, is especially we're even starting now to run display campaigns inside of Demand Gen, because I feel like there's a bit of artificial boosting going along. And Google sometimes do this. Like they just, when they made that announcement last year that they've stopped the prioritization on the shopping feed between Performance Max and shopping, and we were like, well, we didn't know there was a prioritization. We saw it from the data, but I think they've done the same thing with display as well. And I wouldn't be surprised if they've done the same thing with YouTube as well. So that's why I do Demand Gen and not video campaigns. Now let's just talk about, is there anything that's working now for videos that was not working 12 months ago, or vice versa? Has there been any large shifts? That doesn't need to be, just a general question.
The advancement of shorts, like Google and YouTube's investment by placing them so high in the feed, within your mobile experience, has catapulted the amount of, I think, views, which has made easier for advertisers to begin to shift a lot of their content like over to YouTube and to begin to spend dollars there. And so I think it's just, one of these kind of like reversals. Like sometimes you end up taking a platform and testing variation of creative. Now we're taking one creative and testing it across TikTok, Shorts, Reels, as well as Stories to almost do like a platform variation test on like where this like piece of content should live. And then I think what's working now that wasn't working 12 months ago is just this in-feed placement. This in-feed placement provides a level of branding at a low cost on a closed platform with the audience targeting capabilities that Google and Alphabet provide you that I think is unmatched. And so that is where that I am putting a lot of emphasis and dollars for like my brands that really want to do reach. And these are for, clients that are spending in between, 50 to, 250K, in e-commerce that are looking to really get their brand to as many people as possible.
Last question I want to just ask is, want this to be specifically focused for brands or businesses that currently have no video ads, no investment happening. What would you recommend for a brand that's wanting to start or plan their first run of video ads? What would be your recommendations?
I'd really say start on YouTube, and again, I think that comes from a very biased, recommendation, because I'm a big fan of YouTube and I talk about it consistently, but I just think the cost efficiencies, of like running shorts in stream, but also like in feed, like you're able to see how well your video is doing for a low cost against an audience that is willing to stay with your video the longest. So it is a great place. Now, if a brand already has like a following on TikTok or Instagram, or they're going to get a lot of juice, organically, then hey, it's great to launch it there. But I think from an ad perspective, with the rise in CPMs that I've seen on like Facebook and like Instagram, I think YouTube is kind of the place that I would like recommend like really launching their video journey. And then another thing that I noticed recently, like with a brand, and something that I would probably recommend for new and young video advertisers, is to try to boost posts within YouTube by going into the YouTube studio and taking shorts and being able to boost them there. We are just seeing 10-cent CPCs catapulting, sessions on the website. It's just how quality is this audience, is what we're trying to figure out, because at the cost, you don't need much to be quality. And so I think whether you're boosting a post within the YouTube studio, taking advantage of the cost efficiencies with in-feed, leveraging your UGC from another platform like on Shorts, making it easy for you, or if you've got the long form to be able to run in-stream, YouTube and Google Ads have all the capability to really have your video go a long way, but that you can learn a lot from.
Amazing. Hey, Cory, thank you so much for joining us. And for everyone listening or watching this video, if you go down to the description or show notes, you'll see all the links of where you can see Cory and his business Variable Media, and also where you can see him on LinkedIn and all the different parts of the internet where he lives. Hey, Cory, thanks again for joining me. Absolute pleasure for coming and sharing your knowledge.
Thank you, Aaron. Appreciate the time.